Hello there guys, Mark here. I hope you are well. In today's video, I'm going to be demonstrating a fairly ambitious paracord project. We're going to be making a paracord bag. This project originates from the macrame crafts in Paracord. This is a bit more of a rare project, but it has its uses. This style of a bag is commonly used as a shopping bag, but it has other uses as well. The two main supplies for our project are going to be time and paracord. The project uses up quite a bit of both. Now with this said, let me show you the bag up close. So here is the bag that we're going to be making. At the top, we have two rings, which enable us to close our bag as well as carry it. Then, we have a bunch of cords attached using lark's head knots. Then, the cords transition into a series of cobra knots, so a series of square knots. The carrying part is again created using square knots. They are done in a diagonal style, giving it a nice look. Finally, at the bottom, the ends are finished using double half hitches. The bag itself is quite big, with the main carrying part being about a foot long. Then we have this short part for the handles and the handles themselves. So this is our project. Let me show you the supplies. The first thing that you're going to need for this project are a couple of round handles for, well, the handles of the bag. These handles can be bought in a variety of places, and they come in a variety of materials. Wooden ones, bamboo ones. You can get them in PVC, metal, and so on. So you have a lot of designs, colors, and so on to choose from. The diameter of the handles that I'm going to be using is about half a foot or 15 centimeters. The diameter of the handle determines the width of your bag. So the wider the handles, the wider the bag you can make. The second supply is going to be our main one. We're going to need quite a bit of paracord to create our bag. For this diameter of my handles, which is half a foot, I'm going to need 14 cords per handle. So 14 for this handle and another 14 for this one. So a total of 28 cords are going to be used for the bag. Each cord is about 10 feet long. So a total of 280 feet are going to be used for our bag. 4 shorter pieces are also going to be needed, each about a foot long. I have mentioned that we're going to be tying our bag using strands 10 feet long. Now this is a pretty safe bet. Once you have tied your bag, you may fine-tune the length of your cords. You may realize that you only need 9, maybe even 8 feet of cord per strand. It really depends on the tightness of your knots as well as the size of your bag. So for the first bag, you may expect a bit of wasted cord. But it is better to waste some cord than to waste a lot of time and cord and still run short. And finally, we're also going to need something to cut and melt our cords with. This is pretty much everything that we need for this project. Now let's begin by preparing our cords so that we can begin tying. I'm now going to continue with my initial setup. I have cut a bunch of cords. It took quite a bit of time since you need to cut quite a few and you need to melt the ends. I'm going to be attaching half of my cords onto one handle and half onto the other. For my diameter of a handle, which is half a foot, I'm going to be using 14 cords. I'm going to take one, fold it in half, and attach it onto the handle using a lark's head knot. So I feed my folded cord through the handle, like this, and feed the two ends through the bight. And I'm going to do this 13 more times. Finally, I have attached 14 cords onto my handle. This produces 28 working ends. We're going to later on divide them into sets of 4. So 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, and 4. But for now, we're going to do the exact same thing with the other handle. After preparing my two handles, I'm going to continue by lining up a series of square knots. For this purpose, I'm going to be using 4 strands at a time. So these first 4 strands are going to form this first section. Then the next 4 strands are going to create the second section. Then the third section, and so on. Now, to start, I'm going to take my 4 cords. I'm going to place the 2 outer ones a bit to the side, and I'm going to pull them out a bit more. In a cobra weave, such as this one, we tend to use a bit more of the 2 outer cords, so I'm going to work about a foot into the 2 outer cords. So I pull on this outer cord like this until I pull out about a foot more. Usually I check using my tape measure. Then I'm going to pull the other outer cord as well. Again, pull out about a foot more. Like this. So the 2 outer cords are about a foot longer than the 2 inner cords. Now, I'm going to line up 6 square knots on each of the sides. To do this, take your left end, pass it under the 2 middle cords, and over the right one. Take the right end over the top and into the loop on the left side. Like this, and tighten up. Now you don't want these square knots to be too tight. They should be about medium, so not too loose and not too tight. Then continue with the right end, pass it under the 2 middle cords, and over the left one. Take the left end, pass over the top into the loop on the right side. Like this, and tighten up. Pull a bit on the 2 inner strands as well. Then again pick up the left end, pass under 2 and over the right end. The right end passes over the top into the loop on the left side. And again, tighten up. Not too much, not too little. Take the right end, under 2, and over the left end, Then the left end passes over the top into the loop on the right side. Tighten up. And this way we have 2 square knots on each of the sides. We need a total of 6. Continue with the left end, under 2, and over the right end. Then the right end goes over the top into the loop on the left side. Tighten up. Take the right end, under 2, over the left end. Take the left end, over the top into the loop on the right side. Tighten up. Take the left end, under 2, over the right end. Take the right end, over the top into the loop on the left side. Tighten up. Take the right end, under 2, and over the left end. Take the left end, over the top into the loop on the right side. And again tighten up. Take the left end, under 2, and over the right end. Take the right end, over the top and into the loop on the left side. Tighten up. Take the right end, under 2, and over the left end. Take the left end, over the top into the loop on the right side. Like this. Take the left end, under 2, over the right end. Take the right end, over 2, into the loop on the left side. Tighten up. Take the right end, under 2, over the left end. Take the left end, over the top into the loop on the right side. Tighten up. And this is one section complete. So one of these. We are going to need to do 6 more. Just for good measure, let me also show you how to do the next section. Again, we take the next 4 cords, we pull the outer two out a bit, about a foot. So the leftmost one, like this, and the rightmost one, again, about a foot, like this. Now use the outer two cords to line up 6 square knots onto each of the sides. And this way we have completed another section. Make sure that you don't do it too tight and continue the same way. We have done 2, we are going to be able to do 5 more for a total of 7. After creating both handles, I'm going to bring them together with the outer sides facing the outside. So this one is going to face the top, and this one the bottom. So like this. I'm now going to begin the main part, so the part used to carry items. The carrying part is done by lining up row after row of square knots. The first row is done in between the sections of the handle. So this knot in between these two sections, this one in between these two, this one in between these two. The second row is then done in between the square knots of the first row. So this one in between these two, this one in between these two, this one in between these two, and so on. Now let me show you. Let's say that we're going to start here. It doesn't really matter where you start. Take 2 cords from a section on the left and 2 cords from a section on the right. These 4 cords are going to form a new square knot. To tie it, take the left strand, pass under 2 and over the right strand. Take the right strand over the top into the loop on the left side. Like this. Take the right strand under 2 and over the left strand. Take the left strand, pass over the top into the loop on the right side. And this is our square knot. Tighten it up and pull a bit on the 2 middle cords as well. Then simply continue in between the next 2 sections. Take 2 cords from the left side, 2 cords from the right side, and again tie a square knot. So left cord, under 2, over the right one, right cord, over the top, into the loop on the left side. Like this. Then right cord, under 2, over the left cord, left cord, over the top, into the loop on the right side. Like this, and we have another square knot. Tighten it up and pull a bit on the 2 middle cords as well, just to get a nice pattern. Then simply continue. 2 cords from the left, 2 cords from the right. Tie a square knot. Tighten it up and also pull a bit on the 2 middle cords, like this. We have now come to a point where we only have 2 cords on this side of the handle, so on the top handle we have only 2 cords remaining. We are going to take the last 2 from our second handle and connect these 4 cords together. So I need to turn them like this and bring them together. Then again simply tie a square knot. Like this. Tighten everything up. pull a bit on the two middle cords, like this. Now we're going to continue by turning our handles around and continue here on the left side. So 2 cords from a section on the left, 2 cords from a section on the right, and tie a square knot. Like this. Tighten up and pull slightly on the 2 middle cords as well. Continue the same way. And I'm going to continue this technique until I fill out the entire first row. At this point, I again came to a point where I have only 2 cords on the right side, so I'm going to take 2 more from my other handle, bring my cords together by twisting these 2 like this, and again tie a square knot to join the 2 handles on the other side as well. Like this. Since I have completed my first row on this side, I'm going to again flip everything around. Like this, and I have a couple of more square knots to do. and my last square knot in the first row. And with this, my first row is complete. The next rows are going to be much simpler since we have done our basic setup at this point. We have connected our handles at the sides, and we can now continue with our future rows. After doing the first row, we're going to move on to the second one. Again, you can start wherever you want. We're going to place our square knots in between the square knots of the first row. So again, we take 2 cords from the left, 2 from the right, and tie a square knot. Like this. Tighten up and pull on the 2 middle cords as well. Move on in between the next 2 square knots. Take 2 cords from the left, 2 from the right, and again tie a square knot. Like this. Again, tighten up the 2 middle cords as well. Then simply continue lining up square knots in between the knots of the previous row. When you come to the edge, so where you have only 2 cords remaining on this side, again take 2 from the back, turn them together like this, and continue tying square knots. like this. Now move on to the other side. And simply continue. And again on the edges, where we have 2 remaining cords, we take 2 from the other side, bring them together like this, and connect them. Then move to the other side and finish up any remaining strands in the second row. And the final square knot in the second row. Like this. I am pretty sure that you can imagine how to do the third and all further rows. You would simply begin between the 2 knots of the second row. Again, take 2 cords from the left, 2 from the right, and tie a square knot. So simply continue lining up row after row until you have only a bit of cord remaining, perhaps 4 inches, maybe half a foot. So let's do it. You are now familiar with the main technique used to create this bag. Now usually I'm not going to be creating the entire bag on a table. I prefer to hang the bag off of a doorknob or some sort of a hook. This way, gravity pulls the strands down and makes it easier to work and see what I'm doing. It is also a lot easier to line up rows if you have them horizontal like this. I have now tied the carrying part of the bag. I need to somehow close the bottom to prevent items from falling out of the bag. To do this, you have a ton of options. You can improvise a closure using stopper knots, maybe by using square knots or anything else. Traditionally, in macrame bags, double half hitches are used. These double half hitches are tied onto short lengths of cord to finish up the ends. For this purpose, I'm going to be using 2 cords on this side and 2 cords on the other. The cords are about a foot long. Basically, they need to reach from one side of the bag to the other. Since we have so many ends to finish up, I'm going to tie half of the ends onto the front 2 cords and then the other half of the ends onto the other 2 cords on the other side. For now, we are going to attach all of the ends coming out of the center of our square knots onto our first 2 cords. So we are going to move all of the cords from the sides out of the way. So these two, these two, these two, these two, these two, these two, and the ones on the back as well. Again, move away the cords coming out of the sides of the square knots. Just hide them so that they don't get in the way. Like this. So the only ends that I have now are the ones coming out of the center of my square knots. Now, I'm going to take one of my short cords, tie an overhand knot onto one of the ends, and place my cord over the ends that I'm going to finish. So over half of my ends. Now I can begin attaching the ends. So let's now attach this half of our cords onto the guiding cord using double half hitches. We start on the left side. Take your first cord and pass under your guiding cord top down. This creates a half hitch. Now this one is a bit wonky at first, since it is prone to slipping off. Repeat for a second time exactly the same way. So you take the same cord under the guiding cord, top down, like this. And this creates the second half hitch, and once we tighten up, everything locks into place. Take the next cord and again do a double half hitch. So under your guiding cord, like this, and tighten up. And under again, top down, and tighten up. And we have already completed two ends, attaching them onto this guiding cord. Do the next two. Again, a double half hitch. Like this, and the next cord. Like this. I have a bunch more to do, which I'm going to demonstrate, but you probably already know what to do. Attach the rest. like this. And this way we have attached our cords onto our guiding cord once. Finish up on the other side by again tying a simple overhand knot, just to hold everything in place for now. So like this. Now what we're going to do is take a second cord and repeat the process. So why do we do this? On one hand, this further secures our ends. Secondly, it gives it a nice effect at the bottom. So again, take a short cord, tie an overhand knot onto one end and place it over the top. Then repeat the same process. So on the left side, first cord, attach it using a double half hitch. The first one is usually the hardest since it likes to slip out. So like this. Then simply continue from left to right, attaching all of your cords. Once you finish up the second row, you get a beautiful finish, at least in my opinion. Again, tie an overhand knot just to secure everything for later on. Like this. We now need to do the same thing on the other side. To do this, we are going to work these strands from the front to the other side so that we can attach them onto two guiding cords. So basically, I'm going to start on the left side and I'm going to work all of these strands to the other side. So to the bottom. You will want to work them through right next to your double half hitches. Like this. And with this I have cleaned up the front. Now turn your project around . Like this, and we're going to attach the unused half of our ends onto 2 guiding cords as well. On the other side of the bag, I'm pretty much going to repeat the same process that I did at the front. First off, remove your other cords, so the ones that you used on the other side. This just avoids any mistakes. Then, count and check that you have all of the ends present on this side. In my case, I have 28 ends. Line them up. Take a guiding cord, tie an overhand knot, and place your guiding cord over the top, over your ends. Then, we're going to attach all of our ends using double half hitches. So start on the left, take your first cord, and attach it. The first one is a bit tricky, then it gets a lot easier. The first cord is done. Take the next cord and again attach it. Simple double half hitch. And the next cord, and so on. Basically attach all of the ends on this side. Like this. Then secure the end again using an overhand knot. Like this. And again we have a nice looking finish on this side. Take a second guiding cord, tie an overhand knot, and repeat the process. Place the cord over the top and attach all of the ends. Continue attaching your cords until you reach the other side. After lining up all of your ends for a second time, finish up the row using an overhand knot, just to secure everything in place. At this point, we have finished up the bottom. All we need to do is somehow deal with the ends and with the cords sticking out of our sides here at the overhand knots. So let's do our final step. We are going to start finishing the ends by first trimming and melting the cords coming out of the overhand knots on the sides. So basically you trim and you melt. Like this. Do this with the 4 ends on the right side and the 4 ends on the left side. After taking care of the sides, it is time to finish up the huge mess of cords on the bottom. I must admit that finishing this project is for me the hardest part. You have a ton of options. For finishing it, you need to find one that works for you. On my first bag, I simply cut all of the ends and melt them. This is not the most nice looking way of finishing, so I thought of ways that would be better looking than this. Now, this works just fine, it's just not for me. You can, alternatively, for example, take 2 cords and tie a stopper knot. Take the next 2, again tie a stopper knot. And the next 2, a stopper knot. And this way you can fill out the bottom, then trim the ends and melt them. That works much better than simply cutting and melting all of the cords. Now, before we continue with the melting method, a bit of warning first. Usually when I do it, I kinda regret it. On one hand, it works really well. You can hardly see the melted ends and you have a nice clean look. But to do it, I had to cut every single cord and melt it in an awkward spot. This is time consuming and quite frustrating, but it gives you the best result. So, if you don't want to spend too much time melting your ends, you may prefer to do the method of tying your strands together using overhand knots and then simply cutting and melting 2 ends at a time. So for example, if I had 2 ends at the bottom here, to finish them up, all I would do is tie an overhand knot like this, cut 2 ends at a time, melt them and move on. This would create small tassels at the bottom, which aren't all that hard to do, and they look quite nice as well. So, before you begin cutting and melting your cords, really do consider how to finish up this project. I'm going to show you a compromise that is, in my opinion, better looking, but still very simple. This is how I finish up this style of a bag. Basically, I spread apart the bottom like this, and I work the strands towards the center. So for example, this one on the left is going to be worked under this loop underneath it. Here. So this end goes through here. Then the next end again travels through the loop below it. Like this. And I'm going to do this with all of my cords on this side. Then I'm going to take the cords on this side and again repeat the process. So you take a cord and you feed it here, under and through the loop at the top. This way I'm going to get all of my cords to the center here, where I'm again going to cut and melt them out of sight. So simply tuck all of your cords towards the center. So now, after working in all of my ends to the center, I'm going to trim them a bit away from the loop and melt the end into a mushroom cap to prevent it from slipping out through the loop. Like this. Do this with all of your strands. When you close everything up, these melted parts should not be visible. So at this point, after cutting and melting all of my ends, my project is complete. I have a nice looking, functional bag that my wife really loves, even though she hasn't even tried it yet. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this project. As I have mentioned, the only hard part for me is finishing up at the bottom. Other than that, this is an excellent project, an excellent product, gift, or anything else. Enjoy your project, and thank you for joining me. I hope to see you next time.